In this video, we're going to have a look at two lenses. The 25mm f1.2 and the 25mm f1.8 from Olympus. We're going to do a little comparison between them. So this is the diminutive 1.8 f1.8 lens, and this is the f1.2. You can see immediately there's a size difference between them. There's also a weight difference. But we're going to have a look at these characteristics in just a bit. And to do a bit of testing between them, I'm going to use the same camera. This is the EM1 Mark III. Yeah. By the way, if you've seen my other video where I compare the EM1 Mark III and the EM1X and the Pen F together, yeah, you should see that one. It should be interesting if you're trying to decide between these different models. And of course, there's also the EM1, the EM5 and the EM10 in their current iterations. I believe it's the EM10 is in its 4th iteration and the EM5 is 2nd or 3rd, I'm not sure. But I should say that I'm falling more and more in love, it's not the right term, but I'm liking this camera more and more. In the other video that I did, I said that I found the grip a little too small for telephoto lenses, and that still holds true. And I also said that the size of it was smaller than I expected, and that's also true. But look how light it is. And what amazes me about this camera is it's just as capable as the EM1X in so many aspects. And it's so small and tiny. But what I said in the other video still holds true. If you have larger telephoto lenses, or you're planning to purchase the larger telephoto lenses with the big zooms, you're going to find that the grip on this camera isn't exactly made for those lenses. It's perfect for the smaller zooms, right? For the medium zooms or for the wide zooms or for the prime lenses. It's great for those. But it's definitely not great for those big lenses. You just need extra heft, right, to hold it. And you could also get the vertical grip for it. I think that would work out just fine for you. Or you could just bring for the M1X, and then you get all the grip you want. But that's your decision, right? I just wanted to clarify my stance on this camera from the other video. Right, so let's talk about these lenses. Now, we're going to look at their size first, and I've already shown them to you, but let me pick them up again and show you. So, there we go. There's clearly a big difference in size between them. There's no mistaking it, right? It's also worth pointing out the filter size, or the initial diameter of the lens. And on the 25mm, that is a 62mm diameter. And I just love to look at the lens elements askew like this. I think like this they're visible to you, but look how creamy and how thick the lenses are over there, how the glass, you know. When people talk about premium glass or pro glass, this is what they talk about. All of these lens elements that are perfectly ground to give you that focus, right? And then of course we have the 25mm f1.8. It is so tiny and so light, but it's still quite beautiful, you see. So that's a difference in size. By the way, this is a 46mm diameter on the front element. In terms of weight, this one is 410 grams. This one is 137 grams. So you can see that big weight difference as well. Obviously, this is plastic construction, although it's still a bit on the heavy side. Well, heavy compared to maybe the 45mm f1.8, which is super light, because it does have, you know, quality lens elements in it. It's nothing to scoff at. And then, of course, an immediately apparent difference between them is that this one has a clutch focus and this one doesn't. What do I mean by a clutch focus? Let me try to get this close to the camera and get it to focus on it. There we go, see? If you want manual focus, you simply pull down on the focus ring and manual focus engages immediately. Switch back to autofocus like that. That is clutch focus, and it's found on a couple of the premium lenses from Olympus, like the 35mm f1.8, which I'm filming with right now. Actually, that's filming with the EM1X, and it's got the, well, not the 35mm, I'm sorry, the 17mm f1.8. That's on the camera right now. So I'm looking directly into it. That has a clutch focus. Then also the 12mm f2.0 also has a clutch focus. I don't have that lens. I'd love to get it. Right. And then of course, all of the pro lenses, the primes, have clutch focuses. It could be that the zooms also have it. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, because I don't have any of the pro zooms. I have the 40-150 on loan, but I haven't tried the clutch focus on it, so apologize for that, not knowing that at the moment. But we are talking about just these two lenses right now. So yeah, clutch focus, no clutch focus. What that doesn't mean, if this one doesn't have a clutch focus, that you can't simply program one of the camera buttons, right? Any one of the buttons that you feel comfortable with using a lot, to enable manual focus with one touch. You can do that with Olympus cameras. Right. The look, of course, is quite different. You can see immediately that it's different. The price, this is $11.49. I found it on B&H Photo at $11.49 right now, so $1,149. This one is $299. So big price difference between them. Another thing that I like to look at is the closest focusing distance of the lens. It becomes important when you don't pack a macro, or when you simply want to get close to something and get a close shot. Well, this diminutive little thing, the closest focusing distance, is 0.25 meters. So less than a foot. Much less than a foot. This one, this is the closest focusing distance, is 0.3 meters, about 5 centimeters, not about, exactly 5 centimeters more than this one. So you can get closer with this one, a little bit closer to your subject. And of course, this one also takes the macro adapter, which I talked about in a previous video, about 7 or 8 videos back, if I'm not mistaken. And that one will let you get really close to your subject. So you just screw it onto the front element, and then you can take pretty decent macro photographs with this lens without needing to bring an extra macro lens along. Obviously, the macro lens will give you better results. I'm just saying that it can be done. The aperture on this, of course, f1.2, but the smallest aperture is f16. This one, of course, the biggest aperture, the widest aperture is f1.8. The smallest aperture, f22. Now, I will tell you that on a micro four thirds system, you probably won't ever need to go beyond f8. You might want to go to maybe f16, but really, there's no need for it. You get greater depth of field with micro four thirds lenses than you do with lenses made for bigger sensors. So f8, f9, f11, maybe f13, but more than that you won't need it. But it is interesting to point out that f22, f16. Now, the diaphragm in this, the diaphragm is the, I guess you might also call it the iris on some lenses. It's those blades that open and close the actual aperture. They dictate the actual aperture of the lens. This one has 9 elements in the aperture, in the diaphragm. This one has 7, so not bad. Now, you look at them and you look at the difference. Obviously, there's a difference in size and in weight and in price, a big difference in price. And you want to go, where is that extra money going? Well, the extra money is going here towards the wide aperture. This lens has 19 elements. I have to check my specs here just to make sure. I want to make sure I'm reading this right. Yep. 19 elements in 14 groups. This one has 9 elements in 7 groups. So, is this inferior? No, it's not. For the price, it's amazing. It's just amazing, really. I've used this lens for years now, and it's so good. But this gets you, you know the old expression that the first 80%, getting 80% of a job done is the easiest part, and then the extra 20% is the hardest. Well, this gets you about 90% of the way. Okay? This one gets you to maybe 98%. Now, why doesn't it get you to 100? Simply because I think there's always room for improvement on any lens. Now, this is perfect. I am not criticizing this lens. Let me make that clear. The bokeh is so creamy, and it's so beautiful, and it's just so sharp, tack sharp at f1.2. Unlike a lot of other wide open lenses that the sharpness at their widest aperture is not the greatest, this is pretty damn sharp. But I would like at some point, I wonder if it's possible that Olympus come out with an f1.0 or a 0.95, an f0.95 aperture lens, because that would be pretty cool for nighttime photography. That would be amazing. It wouldn't improve the bokeh one bit. It actually would probably make it harder to focus, and you'd probably need to step down the lens in aperture when you want to make sure that you get enough focus on a portrait or an object. But for night photography, being able to have an even bigger aperture, that's cool. Yeah. Because I can tell you, there are 2 reasons in my mind to get this lens versus this lens. And I've been going through the meaningful specs in order to get to this point, right? So what are those 2 reasons? First of them is the bokeh, right? If you want a really creamy, feathered bokeh, although the bokeh here, nothing to scoff about. But this is the best of the best in this focal range, or in this focal length rather, because it's not a zoom, it doesn't have a range, it's a fixed, a prime lens. So in this focal length, at 25 millimeters, equivalent to 50 millimeters on a 35 millimeter sensor. This is the best bokeh you're going to get right there. So the bokeh is one of the main reasons, one of the 2 reasons to get the lens. The other reason is and this is the most important for me, because I'm pretty happy with this bokeh. But that's the most important reason for me. It's more light. More light is key here. And I will show you, when I put these 2 lenses on the same camera, I will show you the importance of more light, because it'll translate directly into what ISO the camera can shoot at. And that's key, again, for shooting in lower light, for not having to use a high ISO and having to deal with the noise. It's huge. And this is why this one has, 19 elements in 14 groups versus 9 elements in 7 groups. Getting from f1.8 to f1.2 is pretty damn hard, and it's expensive. So this lens, it's a piece of art in my mind. It's pretty beautiful. Yeah. So Now I'm going to mount the two lenses on the EM1 Mark III, and I'm going to take a few photos, then I'm going to talk through and show you what I'm looking for in those photos. So I've dimmed the lights in here because I want to look at those two things I mentioned. The how the light that's able to get through the lens affects the ISO, right? That's the one thing. And then the bokeh. And the bokeh is best examined when looking at an object that's close. And so what I'm doing here is I'm recording the screen of the EM1 Mark III with my PenF, so you can have a look at the changes that occur in the ISO as I adjust this. So the first thing, so I want you to look at the ISO, and then what we'll do is we'll look at the bokeh as well. So I'm focusing, you see right there on that sliver. Oops, sorry, right there. Okay, well, we're gonna take a photo, you see. Now have a look and see, this is a 40th of a second, f1.8. Look at the ISO. ISO is 250. If I am to increase the shutter speed, because sometimes you can't shoot at a 40th of a second, sometimes you need 125th or more. You see how the ISO increases. So it's now ISO 800 here. Same aperture, but the ISO had to go up in order to compensate for the faster shutter speed. So I've taken the photos with the camera. Take a few more just to make sure I got the shot that I want. So have a look here, ISO 800 and 125th of a second, f1.8. Now I'm going to switch the lenses. I'm going to put the f1.2 on there, and then we're going to look at both the bokeh and the ISO, changes in the ISO. I've just put the 25mm lens on. The way I talk about aperture is it's like a slice, well, it's like a slice of bread, but instead of bread, it's a focus. And the thinner the slice, the more you pay for it. So that's it is what it is. If you want a thin slice of focus, you gotta go get a wide aperture lens, and that's what you get. You get this creamy bokeh. Right. So we're gonna lower, we're gonna open up the aperture now, I'm sorry, and then we're gonna look at the ISO right here, you see how that changes. So 800, 640, 400, same shutter speed, mind you. So it went from 640, 800 to ISO 400 now. And you can see that the slice of focus is much thinner, you see. If I am to press the depth of field preview button, now it gives you an accurate representation of what f1.8 looks like. And this is important because you can see the differences right there. See, you can see it more pronounced right there. You see, look at that light right there in the corner. Do you see how the quality of it changes? Instead of being more feathered at the edges, it changes into a smaller shape, which is harder, delineated in a harder line, so to speak. You see the change? Right, and you also see the change in focus. A lot more of the needlework is in focus when I go to f1.8. f1.2, it definitely, you see the difference? I'll show the photos on screen as well, but it's pretty amazing. I mean, that's right there, that's the difference between the two lenses. Granted, I think the f1.8 on this lens, the Pro lens, probably looks a little better than the f1.8 on the 25mm lens as well. So we're going to go to f1.2 now, And look at the ISO now. You see, this is 800 right now. f1.6 it's 640. f1.4 it's 500. f1.2 is 400. That's a big difference. That's half, well, not half. I'm not sure exactly how ISO jumps, but it's a lot less gain that you have to induce into each photograph, into the signal, the light signal received by the sensor for each of these photographs if you're shooting at f1.2, and that's the key. You simply don't have to shoot at high ISO anymore. You can shoot at very usable ISO in low light. And what is low light? Because right now in this room, the light is fairly low. There's not a lot of light here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually turn off even more of the lights in here. Excuse me. That was my phone, but thankfully I have a case on it so it didn't break. I'm going to turn off even more of the lights. Turn this off. So now we've got just one light on me as I talk. And it feels weird, but yeah, it feels like a really cheap video production here. With a flashlight on your face. I like that. But I'm gonna take photos of a glass that I brought here in this low light, because I want to also show you in the video differences in the focus. So we're going to sort of like product photography, but obviously this is not a product setup with all the light. What I want to do is just to show you how it works and how the background looks when you're shooting at f1.2 versus f1.8. So that's f1.2 on the camera, and now we're going to switch to f1.8 and shoot with the same lens with a 25mm f1.2, because I do want to be able to judge differences in bokeh between the two lenses at the same aperture. Okay, and now we're going to switch to the f1.8 lens. And I can tell you right away that the shapes in the room, the different chairs and everything, much more visible with the f1.8 lens. There you have it. I hope this has been of help to you. It's pointed out some of the few differences between these two wonderful lenses. And I hope that it will help you in your decisions as you figure out which lens to get for your arsenal of lenses, perhaps both if you can afford them. But yes, like I said in the video, it's pretty darn hard to go from f1.8 to f1.2, and to do it in such a way that it's pretty close to perfection. And that's why you have the extra size, the extra weight, the extra lens elements, the extra price. So you have all of those things. Because it's really difficult once you go beyond a certain point to push the system forward, to get to that point where it's pretty close to perfect. And I have to say, Olympus lenses have not disappointed me. They're so sharp. Even the kit lenses are so sharp. They know how to make lenses, so I'm pretty sure they had very good reasons for it being this size, and this heavy, and this price. Yeah. And like I said in my other video as well, if weight is a concern of yours, perhaps you suffer from arthritis as you get older, who knows what the issue is, get a smaller camera and get a smaller lens. And that way you don't have to worry about it. And I have to say that this camera is pretty darn small and very comfortable to hold with the grip. So yeah, I would recommend it. Okay, till next time.